Call this meeting of the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
I'm here.
Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Gwynn.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez, joining later. Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordyke.
Here.
Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not for the Urban Renewal District or agency meeting.
Thank you. And we have one person signed up for comment, Donald Davis. If you come up to the podium, hit the button to turn on the microphone, introduce yourself and either your address or your ward, and you have 3 minutes. When there's 1 minute to go, the yellow light will start flashing. When it's time's up, the red light will come on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Donald Davis from Ward 8. I'm here to talk about the Marquise property off of Front Street that the city is looking at purchasing. I would highly recommend that the city consider using that property as a potential stop for the WES service. There has been quite a few bills in the legislature that has been looking to study the potential of extending the WES or the West Side Express service from Wilsonville down to Salem. I figure that this would be an excellent property since it already has connection to the railroad tracks and would be a great location for a potential station. It also has a number of high density residential developments nearby, which are prime candidates for commuter rail services, and so I would highly recommend the city consider this whenever deciding what to do with that future project.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Stapleton, seconded by Phillips. Councilor
Great.
Stapleton?
Yes. Consent calendar consists of item 3.1A, the May 8th, 2023 draft urban renewal agency minutes. Item 3.3A, creating a project in the fiscal year 2023 urban renewal agency budget for airport terminal renovations to support commercial air service. Item 3.3B, reallocate future project funds in the fiscal year 2023 Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal Area budget for informational studies regarding a Front Street multimodal project and updating a grocery store analysis, which I'm totally thrilled about. Item 3.3C, the Salem Convention Center marketing addendum for fiscal year 2024. And item 3.3D, which is a ground lease for a real property located at 1555 Silverton Road. And that completes our consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. Any discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez is absent. Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. And we are now on to public hearings. Item 4A.
The Urban Renewal Agency will now hold a public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2024 Salem Urban Renewal Agency budget. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation followed by public testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Callie here with us, Callie Leinenbach from Finance.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy, City Councilors. I'm Callie Leinenbach, a budget manager with the city, and I will be walking you through the public hearing this evening for the fiscal year 2024 Urban Renewal Agency budget.
Dramatic pause. Well done.
It's not going forward. There we go. Salem's Urban Renewal Agency is a distinct corporation with the mayor and city council serving as its board of directors and the city manager as executive director. City staff, primarily in the Urban Development Division, support urban renewal programs through an intergovernmental agreement with the city. The purpose of URAs is to spur redevelopment within an area that might not otherwise occur without public investment. On April 26th, the Budget Committee reviewed the URA budget. On May 10th, the Budget Committee set the property tax levies and recommended the URA budget to the City Council for adoption. This required public hearing was noticed in the Statesman Journal on June 2nd, 2023. There are 4 funds that make up the URA budget, including 2 that relate to the Salem Convention Center. The budget for the Urban Renewal Agency was recommended at $122.4 million. Upon conclusion of this public hearing, staff will return to the agency board for URA budget adoption at its June 26th, 2023 meeting prior to the start of the next fiscal year. And this concludes the staff presentation.
All right. Do we have any questions? We have no members of the public signed up to address the Urban Renewal Agency on the budget, by the way. Any questions? All right. We'll close the public hearing. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I move to direct staff to return on June 26, 2023 with a resolution to adopt the Budget Committee recommended fiscal year 2024 Urban Renewal Agency budget.
Second.
Moved by Stapleton, seconded by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. Yes, this is we've spent so much time on both of these, all of the budgets this year, so many different meetings, and so there's not a lot that I can say, but I am excited by what is in this budget and about the different areas of town that are getting this redevelopment, and I'm excited to vote yes for this.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka. Aye. Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez, absent. Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordike.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We have no special orders of business, and we have no information reports, so we are adjourned. I call this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, June 12th, 2023 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Counselor Stapleton.
Here.
Counselor Nishioka.
Here.
Counselor Phillips.
Here.
Counselor Gwynn.
Here.
Counselor Gonzalez, absent. Counselor Hoy.
Here.
Counselor Nordike. Here. Counselor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Hoy.
Here. All right. Counselor Stapleton, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
And we do. We have a revision tonight, so I'd like to move revisions to the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. The revision that we have tonight is a supplemental report for item 6.D, and that's for the Solid Waste Committee. We had a change of our committee members.
Any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez, absent. Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. It is now time for Councilor and City Manager comments. Do we have any? Councilor Phillips.
I plugged it. Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I plugged it last time we met, but I want to plug it again. This Wednesday at 6:30, there will be the Morningside Neighborhood Association annual meeting. It will be held at the Morningside United Methodist Church on 12th Street. So if you Google Morningside Neighborhood Association in Salem, Oregon, you should be able to get more specifics. But I'm looking forward to attending that Neighborhood Association annual meeting.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. I was not able to be at our last meeting, so I wanted to start off by saying Happy Pride Month. I'm very excited, as always, to celebrate with everyone in our community. A couple of things that I got to do. Actually, I was at this with the mayor last week, which was the opening of the Northwest Human Services building on Edgewater Street. And what an amazing facility there. And the mayor and our representatives from the state were there, and everybody gave wonderful speeches. And it was just a good time had by all in a building that's really doing a lot of good in our community. So the other thing I got to do was go to the Congress of New Urbanism, which was held in Charlotte this year. And I got to spend about 5 days there going on different kind of field trips out into the communities there to see different types of new urbanism. So ways that they're blending new buildings with historic areas of town, new bike infrastructure, which is something that I'm really passionate about. We got to hear a lot about street design and climate change and how building our cities really counts when it comes to that. And of course, a lot about our housing crisis and building ADUs and the like. And so it was really a fantastic time. I learned a lot. I was there with staff, and it was wonderful to be there with them and get to know them better. And thank you so much. I think that's all I got.
Thank you, Councilor. Other comments? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I just want to say I had the privilege, along with Mayor Hoy, to attend the National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and also the renaming of the carousel to Hazel Patton Riverfront Carousel, and both of those were well turned out, and we had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hoy, is that a hand up or a clap?
That would be a hand up.
Okay, you're up.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Thank you. First, I want to say I apologize for not being there tonight. We did have a death in the family, so I'm in the Midwest and had the pleasure of visiting my mom's hometown, which is Spamtown, USA, Austin, Minnesota. But before I left town, I had an experience, a wonderful time, actually, in an odd way, visiting the Wallace Marine Park situation with Matthew Macera, Be Bold Ministries, and Rachel with Ideal Options, and Melinda with Rock Recovery. And we made our way around. It's worse than it was in January, in my opinion, just my visual opinion, more people. Mother Nature has made it more beautiful, oddly enough, because the green is all out, and there was a big cottonwood blossom that day. And further, had the opportunity to attend the pre-opening of Bentley's Grill. As I walked in the door that evening, I noticed a friend of mine standing. He's a tall man, thin, he's a runner. He was wearing shorts, and his knees were really banged up, and the palms of his hands were all scraped up, and the side of his face was full of abrasion. And I went up and I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "Well, I was on a run. I run at night, you know, and I was running in West Salem, and I tripped over a homeless person." And I was just blown away. I mean, I believe we have to be able to do something more for the person who needs a better place to sleep, and perhaps some form of treatment and rehabilitation that we don't even have yet for that person. Also, our citizens deserve safe places to run and to walk and to be. So an action item tonight, I guess, would be to don't hesitate still to speak up about what's going on in your own neighborhood, and let's hope for better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, colleagues, and my condolences to you, Councilor Hoy, and to Councilor Varney. In terms of councilor activities, one of the things I participated in earlier last week was the I Respect and Protect meeting with other community partners who work together to prevent and respond to child abuse in our area. If you're not familiar with the I Respect and Protect website, I highly recommend it. It talks about the dangers of social media and child exploitation. A lot of great information on there, whether you are a parent, a teen, a caregiver, an educator, a mentor, or someone who just wants to learn more about how to prevent and respond to child abuse in our area. So I definitely recommend that. I also participated along with our mayor in the Sprague High School mock congressional hearings last week. And I have to tell you, a great way to feel more optimistic about the future is to attend competitions just like this, because you really get to see the minds of brilliant young people. And I spent 1 year at Sprague High before transferring to and graduating from South. I had not set foot inside its doors since certainly since the bond measure. So it brought back all kinds of those awkward teen movie moments from my own high school years. So that was fun. But again, back to the young people though. Every single team we observed showed up polished, prepared. They knew their stuff. They knew their cases inside and out. And I just love working with young people. So thank you so much to Sprague High for reaching out. I think they reached out to a number of folks, and I was honored to be able to participate and take some time away from my busy schedule to cheer them on. Let's see, a couple other things. Thank you, Councillor Stapleton, for acknowledging Pride Month. I'm sure we all here would like to do so. And there are going to be some Pride festivities happening downtown Saturday, June 17. And on June 19th, we will be celebrating Juneteenth. I believe that's a statewide holiday. The city will be closed. My office will be closed. Many other offices will be closed. There will be activities at the Capitol. And I know our local NAACP chapter is also throwing an event that evening. So you can find out information about all of that online. I look forward to participating in those activities. Unfortunately, that moves me on to my next item. And this is a sensitive one, but I'm moving tonight to authorize our mayor to send a letter of support and solidarity to the Redmond mayor and city council.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Stapleton. So you may have seen in OPB, NBC, and other news media around the country that we've had a disturbing act of racism perpetrated against the Redmond City Council when their mayor, Ed Finch, arrived at his place of work to find a dead raccoon against his office door and a racist note directed at a colleague of his on council, Redmond City Councilor Clifford Evelyn. Councilor Evelyn is the city of Redmond's first ever black councilor. First ever. And this is a sort of racist rhetoric that unfortunately is known across the state of Oregon. Just as a side note, the Oregon Department of Justice bias hotline averages about 241 calls per month. Anyone can call in hate speech. Anyone can call in hate crimes. And they average, again, over 240 calls per month to their hotline. That hotline number is 844-924-BIAS. So tonight, what I would like to do through my motion is to send a letter of support and solidarity to all of our colleagues, anyone who is serving an elected office. Sometimes you can become a target, but our black elected officials are subjected to heightened levels of scrutiny, harassment, intimidation that white persons like myself simply are not. So I would like our colleagues to hopefully support this motion and just show our support for them and show that we support our mayor, Ed Fitch, and we support Councilor Evelyn for having the courage to step up and be the very first black elected official in the city of Redmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor, and thank you for bringing this motion forward. I very much appreciate it. I look forward to sending a letter that I hope that we will pass. So any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez is absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Any further councilor comments? All right, we will move on then to proclamations. And the first one up is the Monarch Butterfly Pledge. So Jennifer Mongalo, please come on up. She's a city employee. If I can make the microphone work. for being here. Whereas the monarch butterfly is one of the most iconic and studied butterflies in North America, widely admired for its beauty, and whereas the monarch butterfly is extremely beneficial, pollinating many cultivated flowers and crops, and serving as an indicator species for the ecological health of large geographical areas, and whereas the monarch butterfly's annual migration, which has been described as one of the most spectacular in the insect world, is now classified as a threatened phenomenon by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and whereas the western population of monarchs, which overwinter in California, has declined by more than 99% since the 1980s, from an estimated 10 million monarchs to fewer than 2,000, counted at overwintering sites in 2021. And whereas a major reason for the decline is the widespread loss of the milkweed plant, the only plant monarch butterflies lay their eggs on, as well as it being the monarch's primary larval food source, and whereas the entire community can play a critical role in providing habitat for monarchs and other pollinators by planting milkweed and nectar plants and reducing pesticide use. Now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim June 12, 2023, that I will continue to participate in the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and through the signing of the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, commit the City of Salem to voluntarily help restore habitat for the monarch and encourage all people of Salem to do the same. Dated this 12th day of June, 2023. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
I'll keep this brief, but thank you so much for making this pledge. And next week is National Pollinator Week, and I just want to re-emphasize a couple things that you said in the pledge. The most impactful thing we can all do for monarchs is to plant milkweed. There are two native milkweed species, showy milkweed and narrow-leaf milkweed, that we can all be planting in our own yards. And we could also all be reducing our pesticide use and being more mindful of how we apply chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you for that great reminder. I have some milkweed growing in my backyard now for the first time. I'm really excited, and I know Councilor Stapleton is a prolific milkweed distributor or something. So, yes, thank you so much. All right, now it looks like we have Mark Green and a whole bunch of friends from Make Music Day. Come on down. Good to see you again. Thanks for being here. Hi. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. All right. Just if you could maybe just line up a little bit, because remember the camera's looking. There you go. You're on TV. All right. Whereas Make Music Day was launched in 1982 in France as a, oh boy, Fête de la Musique, as a new kind of musical holiday, an event where free live music is everywhere. And whereas over the last 40 years, Make Music Day has spread to over 1,000 cities in 120 countries and takes place on the summer solstice, June 21st, each year, encouraging anyone who wants to take part, young and old, amateur and professional, to pour onto streets, parks, plazas, and storefronts, gardens, and porches to share their music with friends, neighbors, and strangers, all free and open to the public. Whereas Make Music Day Salem is a nonprofit, volunteer-run network that hosted its first event in Salem in 2016. Since then, over 1,000 performers, 1,500 performances, and 250 host venues have provided free music to over 50,000 people. And whereas Make Music Day is now planning the 7th annual Make Music Day celebration on Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, and is seeking performers, venues, and sponsorships. Now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim June 21st as Make Music Day in Salem and encourage all citizens to embrace and celebrate music and the sense of community that it can foster. Dated this 12th day of June, 2023.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having this here today. Just a reminder, again, next Wednesday, June 21st, is Make Music Day here and throughout the world. And right now we have about 165 performers that day at over 50 venues. And it's going to be amazing, we think. We have some special surprises that I think the city will enjoy. And again, we thank everybody for participating in all the support.
Give us an idea of some of the venues.
Well, the amphitheater is going to be running all day with the Oregon Symphony. Excuse me? Peace Plaza, of course, is always one of our participants, as well as any business we take care of that work with the city permits. So anybody can host music anywhere. And we've got some special groups coming, like the Unipiper will be here. Nice. Yeah, never been to Salem. And nice. Portland Samba, and some other groups coming too. So great. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
The chamber folks may be on the agenda for but I don't think so.
They may what?
They may have signed up for the budget. She thinks they signed up for the tax, but I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, now it's time for public comment. First up, we have DJ Vincent. Come on up to the microphone, hit the button so it turns the microphone on, introduce yourself, either your address or your ward. And as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. The orange light will flash at 2 minutes. The red light will come on when your time's up.
DJ Vincent. I live in Ward 3. I am the pastor and director of Church of the Park. It's an honor to be here, Mayor, councilors. I come here to speak in favor of 6A and the passing of a Safe Salem payroll tax. It's because of the great partnership in the city of Salem so that we can see Salem become a loving and accepting place where all belong. And even those who are unsheltered are welcome towards their next steps. That is the purpose of Church of the Park. And because of your partnership through the pandemic, we were able to launch Safe Parking, which is still active at a number of churches. We were able to launch an adult micro shelter site that is now at Center Street. Tonight, it can shelter 80 people. And we have great partnership with existing homeless service work with Salem PD, as well as emergency service response. And last year, we tracked 40 people who were high utilizers of services, and we saw an 80% reduction to emergency room visits and a 75% reduction in 911 calls because they were in a safe space, because they were connected to primary care. We were able to open, with your help, a family site on Portland Road that can serve up to 132 family members a night. And just last month, we saw 8 families move into permanent housing. And so we celebrate that, as well as we celebrate last year alone. Because of your partnership, we were able to shelter just right around 600 folks. 271 of those folks moved on to a positive destination because of the safe and supported environment they were in and the way that we coordinate those services here. Because of your support, we'll be able to open 38 beds this month, dedicated specifically to young adults, 18 to 24. They will have workforce development opportunities and all those counseling supports that we provide at each of our sites, as well as, again, connection to primary care and other services. I just want to emphasize those things would not have happened without your partnership, and those things cannot continue without your partnership and the passing of the Safe Salem payroll tax.
Thank you, DJ. Appreciate your comments. Ron Sturba.
Good evening, Ron Sturba. I live in our number 1 ward. Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors and City staff. I'd like to say in support of the airport, I have a building at the airport, and I noticed on my tax statement, there's no taxes going to the airport. It's self-sufficient. I don't like that, and I'm willing to see $50 of my more going to the city airport. Also, $8.75 for anyone using our airport to take an airline out of Salem or back in. It's a user fee, and I'd like to see that. Also, runway 3416, I do not want to have that closed. We need that other runway. If you put all of the traffic on the main runway, that means 4,000 people, 4,000 planes a month on the average over the Capitol building. I live in the area. I don't want that. If there is a seismic activity here in Marion County, there is a group of people, emergency responders with airplanes, to provide food to other communities. If the bridges fail over to Willamette, we will take food over to Polk County. That's important for me. I don't want noise over my area, but as things progress, airplanes are getting quieter, and I like that. I don't have a noisy airplane. I have soundproofing in mine and mufflers, and I don't want airplanes over my airport or over my community. So thank you very much, and I wish you all well.
Thank you, Mr. Sturba. Reverend Dr. Marilyn Williams.
Good evening. I am Reverend Dr. Marilyn Williams from Salem Mission Faith Ministries. I am here today to speak about the importance of 6A and how important it really is for the citizens of Salem regarding that payroll tax for the city employees, counselors, councilmen, for us, period. Once, years ago, a gentleman named Cain asked God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Jesus answered that question when he said to Peter, "To feed my sheep." We are all our brother's keepers. We are all our sister's keepers. And it is important that we help those who are not able to help themselves. We always talk about how rich America truly is, but yet and still we forget about the others. Time is falling out for us to forget about the others. We are all human beings, and I find it very important that we continue to show our love and reach out to those people who can't help themselves. I am one of the churches that help with the safe parking, and my feeling is this: they have to live somewhere. They have to be somewhere, whether it's husband, wives, children. We are all responsible for each other. We are quick to give to other countries, but we are not as quick to give to our own people here at home. We need to take care of our home first and then go out and take care of everybody else, because we are all our brother's keepers. So I am asking each and every one of you to please approve the proposal that is put before you, to approve it so that we can improve ourselves, our city, and to make everyone feel that they have a purpose and that they belong, not you on your end and I'm on my end. We need to cut out that segregation and preach togetherness so that when it comes our time, we can be the role model that we should be for the whole world of how to treat each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. We appreciate your comments. I apologize if I get this next name incorrect. Sterling, is it Cuneo? Cuneo? Cuneo. Thank you.
Full transparency, I'm super nervous, so forgive me if I stumble and look at my notes.
No worries. Take your time. Take a deep breath.
My name is Sterling Cuneo, and I work with Church at the Park. And I am here in favor of 6A, Safe Salem Employee Payroll Tax, in which dedicates funds to both fire and police services, EMS, 911, code enforcement, and unsheltered services. I'm particularly here advocating on behalf of the unsheltered services because that's the work that I do. And I want to offer these comments informed by two different perspectives rooted in my own personal experience. Often when I tell people that I'm an award-winning author or an Oregon Literary Arts Fellow or a University of Oregon alum, they're surprised to find out that I was also homeless in the streets of this city before being incarcerated at age 16 and serving 28 years inside the penitentiary. When I came home, I got involved as an act of redemption, personal atonement for my own acts. And I started serving those that was most vulnerable, and I was embraced by Church at the Park. And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to do is, so I've contributed to Salem being more dangerous, and I'm now contributing to Salem being more safer. When, as a teenager, on the streets, homeless, I didn't hear none of these conversations, the debates about where the money would come from, or the services, or the counseling, or the therapy, because it wasn't there in 1990, 1991, 92, 93. And now it is here. And in my own life, what helped me heal, transform, and come up out of that was support. It was being embraced. And in my academic experience, I learned that all throughout history, whether we're talking about the abolition of slavery, whether we're talking about women voting, whether we're talking about marriage equality, the prohibition of child labor in industrial factories, whatever it was, at first, it was an unpopular decision. And people that had the ability to make that decision to include those that are frequently othered, they had to be brave and courageous and get that ball rolling. And
I apologize, Mr. Cuneo, but your time is up.
I made my point, I believe.
You did. You made it very well. Thank you.
Be courageous, please.
Thank you. You did a great job. Rick Goppo.
Rick Goppo, Marion Polk Food Chair, Ward 1. I wish I was in the legislature, if so I would yield my time to hear Sterling talk a little longer. Thank you, Sterling. I'm also here in support of the payroll tax, although I just hate the name. We just heard the presentation on urban renewal, and that language was investment. That language was we invest in the city we want to build for the good of the city, for the city that we believe is thriving and energetic and supportive of all. So when I say the payroll tax, it's like, oh, what we really mean is a safe Salem investment in a livable, welcoming community. And that's what I really think this tax is about, and making sure that that is true for everyone. So I support investments in our public and police and fire services and public libraries and city parks. But I also support investments in the unsheltered and taking care of the hungry and making sure that we have basic social service network. I really don't think we have a spending issue. We have a revenue issue. We like what we're spending money on. We want to have investments in a great, livable community. And we have to have the revenue to do that. And so when we call it a payroll tax, and I understand that, I understand the nomenclature, but what we're really talking about is raising the revenue for the city we want to live in. And that excites me, and I'm all for that. I think of the curb cut effect. The curb cut, which was mandated out of an ADA Act to say you have to put in curb cuts, it turned out it didn't just help those with disabilities. It helped parents with strollers. It helped the elderly with who had canes and problems getting down the steps. It helped us walk safely across the street. Because it turns out when you take care of the most marginalized, when you make cities more livable for those with the largest barriers, you actually made life livable, cities more livable, safe for everyone. So when I think about this investment, and I'm going to call it the investment in a welcoming and livable community, it is an investment that benefits us all, not just the unsheltered, not just the hungry, but the community we want to live in. So I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Capo. Appreciate your comments. Carl Camper.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Carl Camper, and I reside at 486 Northwest Mount Bachelor Street in McMinnville, Oregon. I work here in the city of Salem, and I'm here to express support for the services for the community, but opposition to the payroll tax as a way to fund those. I don't believe that funding the services should be placed on those of us that don't live in the community where we already fund those similar services. And I've done work with homeless and with vulnerable populations and with free clinic work in my own community. It touches very deeply my heart as a Christian, what has been said tonight. I want my message to be clear. As one of the 70,000 commuters, I oppose the use of the payroll tax to fund the initiatives. Due to time limits, I'll respond with 3 comments. First is the assumed burden that we as commuters place on the city services. The strongest argument appears to be that as a non-resident commuter, I present a burden to the city simply by my mere presence in the city and should pay my share of the resources here in Salem. The logic behind that is it's appealing, but it's flawed. It also fails to recognize that the burden placed by those that enter the city for commerce, shopping, recreation, entertainment, it can be argued that they also place a similar burden on safety services by their time spent in the city. You can argue that business fees and taxes or taxes related to specific activities like lodging taxes offset that. I would propose that business fees and taxes also support the reasonable use of employees to come to their employment and provide services in the city. While I disagree with the premise of the payroll tax, I also point out that in reviewing the application of the taxes and wages to work performed in the city of Salem, that the bill as proposed is fundamentally flawed. It clears out those that are employed, but provides no opportunity or clear information on how for those that are self-employed who are clearly included and intended to be included. The proposal entirely fails to address the difficulty and complexity as designed. It's simply using it as a business registered in Salem. It includes people that do not work in Salem but may work for those headquarters. For those that have headquarters outside, it excludes them from participation. It fails to recognize that there's a lack of clarity for remote workers who never come and place burden in Salem, while also failing to include work performed in limited time projects such as construction or trade work on sites, mobile work such as plumbers, electricians, appliance repair people, landscapers, home installation contractors. It doesn't account for work performed by transportation delivery workers such as mail carriers, FedEx, UPS, etc. In my city alone, I have supported additional city services to deal with our budget shortfall. I voted in the recent elections to increase my tax burden. When you add the city payroll tax, as compared to my prior property taxes, my burden will have gone up 50% this year, and 20% of my burden will be spent on the payroll tax based on my estimate of wages. For these reasons, I oppose it. I have no problem with the services, but I would ask you to consider other alternatives to funding rather than to set Salem up as an inequality for employees that choose to work here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camper. Benny C. Williams.
Good evening to the mayor, to the city manager, to the city council. Thank you for an opportunity of coming forward. I'm Benny Williams. I'm the assistant pastor at Salem Mission Faith Ministries, the former president of the local branch of the NAACP. I come forward to give support and ask for recommendation on the part of the city council to pass this budget that will include Section 6A. It's a simple question for me. The homeless exist, and they're going to exist. And the question becomes, if we don't try to do something about helping them off the street, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? The fact of the matter is, as you've heard from my pastor and my wife, the Reverend Dr. Marilyn A. Williams, earlier this evening, this is a reality that is not going to go away. And all of the funding, all of the funds that have gone forward prior to this proposal has tried to address this issue, and we still have this issue. We need to continue to try to take as many steps and move forward in addressing the homeless as we can. They're not going to go away. Now, the fact of the matter is, the faces of the homeless look more like you than they do me. And that's true here in Salem, that's true in the state of Oregon, and that's true around the country. So this is not a racial issue. This is not a situation that any one of these people have put themselves into intentionally. The fact of the matter is, I don't believe any of them would want to be homeless. But they are. And we have to acknowledge not only that they are, but what can we do to help get them out of that condition? This proposal is not going to resolve that, but it will go a ways toward resolving that and getting this situation better handled. And frankly, you know, we heard about the incident, the city councilor mentioned about a man who had hurt himself tripping over a homeless. There is no place in Salem or anywhere in this country today that does not have the issue of homelessness. We have to do our part here. I keep referring, frankly, to an old adage that the late Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives said, Tip O'Neill, all politics are local. And this is a local problem that we're dealing with. We can talk nationally and we can talk internationally. It's not unique, but what we have to be concerned with is our own backyard. And I believe that we should move forward on exercising the opportunity of taking this proposal and moving it forward as law and policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We will now move to online comments. Carrie Kuroda.
And Mayor, I don't believe any of the folks that signed up for online comments have joined the meeting.
Are you Clifford? I was thinking you were Clifford signed up, but he's here in person now. So Clifford, come on up. Clifford Eifler Rodriguez.
Great.
So my sheets, washing them and stuff like that.
If you'd hit the button there you go.
I appreciate the time, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Clifford Eifler Rodriguez. I live in Ward 7. I'm here to testify regarding 6A. I expect it to pass. Listening to the budget meetings, there's a strong current to that. When we talk about that passing, what I care about are the priorities and the spending priorities of the city. We continue to invest in 2 departments, both the fire and the police, that are overwhelmed by the thousands of calls that they receive and are unable to adequately address. They don't have the capacity for that. They're overwhelmed, and they continue to show that they're overwhelmed by asking for more money. What they will receive from the tax is about 60%, which is about their share of the budget currently. Over half the budget goes to 2 departments who can't handle the volume and the type of calls that they're receiving. We've seen advocacy to find help for them in the form of the mobile crisis response team that has never materialized. We keep kicking it back and forth between, the reality that the state did allocate funds to Marion County, but we still put money into 2 departments who cannot meet what we as a community need, what people on our streets need, what people who call in and are having a mental crisis need. Instead, we see outcomes again and again from a police department that has run into trouble, and how you respond to those types of calls to often grow violent. We've seen some very tragic incidents in the last couple of years, and we continue to see that. We see a fire department unwilling to change. On record, chief is unwilling to change the response model to those emergency calls. So we see fire engines million fire engines with 4 firefighters who respond to emergency calls that are critical. You know, it was heartrending to read your story about a family member, and I'm touched. I've been in that situation as well. But that means we need to find another way to get the outcomes we need to meet the needs of our community. Those thousands of our calls aren't being met because you, as a council, as a city manager, you are not meeting the needs and calls of your constituents. We are not taking the bold steps to serve your constituents, the community members who are your neighbors. We fund an airport, a boondoggle, for another tune of $1 million a year. We can't get $500,000 for a pilot program. Come on, do better. Don't spend that money that you're asking us on these 2 departments. Find a better way.
Thank you, Mr. Eifler Rodriguez. Kenya Walker. Okay. And we do have one person signed up under number 8. If council doesn't object, I'll let that person go now so they don't have to sit through the entire meeting that could actually be rather lengthy tonight. So Sarah Vick Parkinson. Sarah, sign up in person. No? We'll come back. Maybe she's recognized that it could be a lengthy meeting, and so we'll come back to her under item number 8.
Mayor, if I may, if there are any other individuals that signed up to speak regarding the payroll tax and not the budget, now would be your time to speak up. I think there may be a few folks that may have signed the incorrect roster, so just giving you a chance now to come forward if you intended to speak to the payroll tax and not to the budget hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, City Recorder. If tonight is not the night we're actually going to be considering whether to pass the payroll tax, but we will be actually going in depth into the budget. So is there anybody here specifically to speak about the payroll tax who would like to be heard? Yes, come on up. Please introduce yourself, and we'll have you sign up also. Okay.
I'm Pamela Lyons Nelson, and I live in Ward 1. And I'm here to do a couple of things, and one of them is to congratulate you folks on even venturing into a payroll tax. In this city, we have needed people who were courageous enough to go out and try to raise revenue through this and that mechanism for 30 years to take care of what started out at the end of Mike Swaim's years as an $11 million deferred maintenance problem. I imagine $11 million looks pretty good right now. I imagine that would be what people would choose. But it's gone in every single department that I've ever really looked into. Most of what I look into is social services, because most of what I do in terms of the city is deal with the unsheltered population. So first of all, I just want to congratulate you on even taking this on. It heartens me greatly, and a number of other people who are as old as I am, and remember how this discussion didn't really have a chance to even get to the floor for a long time. So what I really have to say is I am very much in support of 6A. Besides having needed your leadership and the resources, we now have another thing, which, Mr. Williams, you brought up. This is local. When we look around at the people who are on the streets, when we look around at the unhoused, we're seeing people who lived within 50 miles of Salem. This was their urban area. They may not have been born here, but they've been here for 10 years, for 15 years, for maybe 3 years. They didn't come here for resources. They came here because they were desperate. And what people all over the world do is when their supply of funds expires, they go to the city, and we're the city. So we have to, this is part of being a neighbor. These people were and are our neighbors, and when we treat them as we would treat our next door neighbor, whom we like, then we are on the right path here. And so I put forth my support and anyone that I talk to for this tax. A year ago, Jimmy Jones told us in a meeting of what was then the Coalition for, I don't remember what we called it, the unsheltered, something like that. He came in and we were asking him questions, and he told us that this increase in homeless.
I'm sorry, your time is up. I
Okay.
apologize. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for letting me speak.
We have one more person who wants to comment on 6A. Hit that button there to turn the microphone on. Please introduce yourself and your address or your ward.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Hoy, members of the City Council. Good evening. My name is Jason Brandt. I serve as the president and CEO of the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. I live here in beautiful Salem with my family of 5 and absolutely adore this town and adore the community services that so many in this room are providing. So hats off to DJ Vincent and his crew, as well as so many others that are trying to lift people up in this community, and I think that's incredibly important. My comments tonight in relation to the payroll tax also relate to the budget. I just want to make sure that when we're thinking about this, and a reminder for all the folks in the room, the fiscal year budget that you guys are proposing today does not include an actual implementation, right? That's 1 year away if it were to pass. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of the payroll tax, yes.
So we have some time to think through how we engage the community with the prospect of a payroll tax, whether that's town halls, more community conversations. I just want to make sure that the current fiscal year budget that's being considered tonight does include some type of contingency funds to have that education process throughout the community. You know, we're talking a little less than 1% out of, payroll that is created here in the city. And I just think that there's so many people, having sat in this council room for many years before my current position, there's so many folks that are just so busy and they'll never realize this is happening until they see that deduction from their paycheck. So we have such a significant responsibility to make sure that those voices are heard and are given the opportunity to speak into the issue. In our membership, we have 3,000 members across the state. About 75 restaurants and hotels are located here in the city of Salem. One issue in particular I want to make sure people are aware of, which relates to the mechanics of how a payroll tax can function. So about 1,801 of our jobs are server positions out of about 11,000 jobs in the industry, so for Salem. Those 1,800 jobs are typically minimum wage positions, but the median tip wage for waiters and waitresses is $40 an hour, 40. So when you're considering details within the current draft ordinance, you have to remember that there's the potential to exacerbate more wage inequality with the way that a payroll tax were to be implemented. A case in point, typically the people within the line of service in our industry are making the most in the front of the house, yet they're minimum wage employees because that tip income, median range of $40 an hour, is not included when it comes to these types of functions. So the back of the house workers, the cooks, the chefs, the folks in the back that are making the food possible, they actually would get hit with the payroll tax because they're above minimum wage, even though the total compensation for those employees is less than those that are in the front of the house earning the tip income. So just one example of many that I know will be out there to further talk about the issue.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. And I think, Sarah Vick, would you like to do your comments now? We can do them now, or you can wait till the end of the meeting. It's your choice. You can make your comments now, or you can wait till the end of the meeting when item 8 comes up. You want to wait? Okay. You're welcome. Anybody else who wanted to address item 6A? All right, we will close public comment now and move on to the consent calendar.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Stapleton, seconded by Phillips. Counselor, to your motion.
Thank you. We have several items tonight. Item 3.1A, which is the May 22nd, 2023 draft City Council minutes. Item 3.2A, the proposed fiscal year 2024 fee schedule. Item 3.2B, acquisition of property for the Center Street Northeast Improvement Project from Lancaster Drive Northeast to 45th Place Northeast. Item 3.3A, an award of $50,000 wastewater pretreatment grant to Oregon Fruit Products. Item 3.3B, the United States Department of Justice Edward Bryan Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for fiscal year 2022. And then the same for item 3.3C, but for year 2021. Item 3.3D, the intergovernmental agreement with Orchard Heights Water Association. Item 3.3E, the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Salem and Marion County for upgrades to the Salem Municipal Airport. And lastly, item 3.3F, the purchase and sale agreement for real property located at 2530 Mountain View Drive South. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Counselor. I would just like to comment on item 3.2B, and that's the improvements to Center Street Northeast between Lancaster and 45th Place. That's been an item that has been I've been working on since I was elected to City Council in 2017, and I am so excited to finally see this come into fruition. It is such a great thing, so important for that area of town. So, any other comments? Counselor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. Just for item 3.3F, purchase and sale agreement for 2530 Mountain View Drive South, I would just like the city staff to work with me, assuming that motion passes, so I can assist in sending notifications to residents that are in the Croissant Mountain area. Thank you. That would be all. Thank you.
Any other comments? Will the recorder call the roll?
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke. Aye. Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Now we are on to public hearings. So item 4A.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider the petitioner-initiated annexation of territory located in the 4800 block of Macleay Road Southeast and lands adjacent. The criteria applicable to the decision is SRC 260.010G1. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing in person or in writing, or failure to provide statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to provide the parties and the City Council an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will begin with the staff presentation, followed by testimony from the following. The applicant is limited to 10 minutes. The applicable neighborhood associations, if any, are limited to 5 minutes per association. Other interested individuals are limited to 3 minutes, and the applicant may have up to 5 minutes rebuttal testimony limited to issues raised during the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see we have our Deputy Director of Community and Urban Development and Planning Administrator, Lisa Anderson Ogilvie, here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the introduction. I don't have to say all of those words. I'm here tonight to present an annexation for your consideration. Make sure I can go through. Oh, there we go. So the property's on Macleay Road, which may be hard to see in this aerial, but it's just north of Highway 22, east of Lancaster, and west to northwest of Cordon. Very slow. Here we go. Zoomed in a little bit here. So the property, as you can see in the photo, is vacant, and it's 4.21 acres. The annexation includes right-of-way here. And then also this annexation is going to create an enclave. So the three properties, I'll go back, the three properties that are just to the east of the subject property, if the annexation is approved, then they'll be completely surrounded by city limits. And what that means is in the future, the city would have potential ability to annex it without asking for the property owner's permission to do that. They were sent 2 notices. They asked a few questions, but they have not provided any testimony for the hearing tonight. The subject property is designated multifamily on our comprehensive plan, which is shown here in orange. It was given that designation last year through our Salem. You can see the property to the south and the west is also multifamily. And then in the vicinity, we have developing residential, which is the light bluish green color, and single family residential, which is yellow. The properties that are inside the city right now are showing up with a color, and there's a variety of single-family and multifamily zoning or in the vicinity. The applicant is requesting multifamily RM2, which is the same zone to the property to the south, which is what staff is recommending. And then in the county, the property is currently zoned UT5, which is urban transition 5 acres, as is the property to the east. The property to the west in green color here is multifamily in the county. Mostly it's developed as duplexes, and the property across Macleay to the north in the county is zoned single family. In order to approve an annexation, you have to consider the annexation criteria as detailed in the staff report. It does meet all of the criteria. It's exempt from going to the voters because the applicant is the only owner and they've signed the annexation request. Generally creates an orderly boundary. City services can be provided to support new development at urban densities. The request includes a withdrawal from Marion County Fire District Number 1 because the city will be providing that service. And generally it's in the public interest since it's inside the urban growth boundary and can provide land for housing. We did receive one comment in opposition asking that the property remain open space. Obviously it's inside our urban growth boundary and we designated it multifamily, and it's in private ownership, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to keep it open space. So we're recommending that you approve the annexation, which includes applying the RM2 zoning, withdrawing it from Marion County Fire District Number 1, and forwarding the request to first reading. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. We do have people signed up for comments, so we'll hear from them and then we'll come back for questions. And it looks like first we have Chris Weddle. And I'm sorry, are you the applicant?
I am the applicant.
You are the applicant.
I wasn't sure if I needed to sign up or not. I have nothing further to add.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no, you don't have to speak. You're welcome to speak.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything further.
Okay, and what about Gordon King?
Cities.
I'm sorry?
I concur with the city.
Great.
Thank you.
And Gordon, same?
No, I signed up.
I think maybe Chris signed you up for it. Yeah. Okay. It was very nice of him to do for you. So, all right, we will go back then to questions for the staff. Do you have any questions for the staff? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. And we are going to go to Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I move to approve annexation of an approximately 4.21 acre territory located in the 4000 block of Macleay Road Southeast and lands adjacent.
Second.
Motion by Nishioka, second by Phillips. To your motion? Nothing?
No, I feel that this is an appropriate annexation and don't have any other comments for that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. Now we will open a public hearing on item 4B, the state revenue sharing funds.
Salem City Council will now hold a public hearing regarding state revenue sharing funds. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation followed by public testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
I did it wrong.
No worries, it's fine.
You can't see either, huh? It's the glare.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor Hoy, City Council. Callie Leinebach again, Budget Manager. Tonight we'll be holding a second public hearing for state revenue sharing. The first took place at the Budget Committee's May 3rd meeting. Tonight's public hearing was noticed in the Statesman Journal on May 30th. The state of Oregon collects taxes assessed from the sale of liquor and distributes 14% of those receipts to cities. Revenues are distributed based on a formula that includes city population, average property taxes per capita, and average income of residents. The city is budgeting a slight decline in revenue from the program. Budgeted revenue next year is nearly $2.4 million. The League of Oregon Cities, in their most recent annual report, noted that statewide, there's a return to normal alcohol sales that had previously spiked during the pandemic. This reset is reflected in the budget estimate. The LOC report also indicates liquor sales are projected to increase over the next several years. The revenue generated from the program is used to offset the expenses in the general fund for police patrol services. As recommended by the Budget Committee at their May 3rd meeting, this offset would continue in the fiscal year 2024 budget. Tonight is the second of two required public hearings, and this public hearing covers the proposed use of state revenue sharing funds. The first public hearing was to consider possible uses. Staff seeks approval of Resolution 2023-16, which will allow the city to elect to receive these funds and participate in the state revenue sharing program. This resolution will be filed with the Oregon Department of Administrative Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Callie. Any questions? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I move that the City Council adopt resolution number 2023-16, electing to receive a share of certain revenues from the State of Oregon General Fund.
Second.
Moved by Stapleton, seconded by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
I don't have much more to add than what was already stated by staff, but look forward to voting in favor.
Receiving money from the state is always a good thing, almost always. All right, any other discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. We're going to go on to item 4C, but before we do that, I would like to just take a 5-minute quick break, allow Josh to do his technology, and allow the rest of us to settle in for the discussion. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. To come back online and we'll get started. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will go ahead and resume with item 4C, a public hearing on the 2024 City of Salem budget.
Salem City Council will now hold a public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2024 City of Salem budget. The hearing will begin with the staff presentation, followed by public testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
And we have Josh Eggleston here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer with the city. I have an extremely brief presentation for you this evening. The City of Salem Budget Committee held 4 meetings throughout April and May to consider the city manager's proposed budget. At their final meeting, they forwarded their recommendation to the City Council for consideration. As required, the city is holding this public hearing on the recommended budget. The public hearing was noticed in the Statesman Journal as required by state law on June 2nd, 2023. The recommended budget includes $753.97 million across the 6 results areas, including the construction funds. In another view, many more numbers, here is the recommended budget by fund. The largest budget is the general fund, followed by the capital improvements fund and the utility fund. Following the public hearing, staff recommends the City Council deliberate on the recommended budget within the restrictions provided in law, which are: property taxes cannot be increased from the rate levied by the Budget Committee. No funds expenditures can be increased by more than 10%. Following deliberations of the budget, the City Council is asked to approve any changes to the budget this evening to allow staff to return with a resolution to adopt the budget on June 26, 2023. At that time, staff will ask the City Council to amend the budget approval made this evening to include any rebudgeted purchase orders or carryover projects from fiscal year 2023, the current budget year, which city staff are currently identifying, as well as any other appropriation needs that were not identified during the budget review process, but remain within the 10% cap prescribed in budget law. A complete list of items to be included in the fiscal year 2024 budget will be provided to the City Council with the agenda packet for the June 26, 2023 meeting. This concludes the staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions after public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. All right, we have, looks like 6 folks signed up. So we're going to start off with Ron Sturba. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and either your address or your ward.
Good evening. Ron Sturba, Ward 1. Good evening, Chris Hoy, Mayor, councilors, and city staff, and everyone who's here concerning our city. I like to say that being a senior, I love being here in this city. I enjoy it. I have another name that goes back some 7-8 years, Mr. Streetlight Guy. And I brought about the street lights with a 3,000 Kelvin range, which is safer for pedestrians, for cars to be able to see pedestrians on the curbs. And right now I'm coming at a fee, I think it's $2.85 for each resident on their bill each month for streetlights. Now, one of the things that I took a look at, and I think it has not changed, but if there's a commercial retail complex with 5 stores in it and 1 water meter, there's only 1 charge for city lights. There should be 5 city light charges for those retails businesses. The reason why I say that, because the customers for the retail businesses are using our street lights. Now, as a senior, there's 3 lights on my street and then 20 houses. So why not have the retail businesses pay their fair share for all the city businesses? And I like to see that uniform. I think it's a gap in the system. I don't know where it happened, but as a senior, I don't care. I don't mind paying my fair share to the city. It works really well. I was notified by PG. They accepted my a Kelvin range for streetlights at 3,000. So, woo-hoo for that, and I like that. And the other thing I want to talk about real quick was the streetlights around the airport, the state buildings, all came from a organization called Dark Sky International, and I thank them for leading me on the trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Betsy Belshaw.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Betsy Belshaw. I live in Ward 8, and I'm here with my hat on of the Minto Volunteer Park Patrol and our one, I underline one, park ranger. The city managers had enough foresight to put 2 additional park rangers in the upcoming budget, and I am here to say please support that, because then we will have 3 park rangers for 91 parks instead of 1. So I just am here to support that and urge you to find the money to fund those 2 extra park rangers, because we need them. Any questions? No.
Thank you, Betsy. I don't know what we're going to do next year if we finally, I mean, I think you've been here the 7 years that I've been on council making the same request, and finally we're adding some, so congratulations.
And I've been pushing for park ranger every one of those
You
years.
have. You have. You've been very tenacious. Thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you for your time.
Selena Barnes.
All right, good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Selena Barnes, and I am the Government Affairs Director for the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors, which is located at 2794 12th Street Southeast. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you regarding the Budget Committee's recommended budget that you are considering tonight. And I also wish to thank Mayor Hoy and city staff who came and presented to our Government Affairs Committee and Board of Directors as well, so that we could understand this better. Since the Great Recession in 2008, everyone has needed to make cuts on their budgets to survive. COVID affected us all, and now inflation is having a tremendous impact, not only on the city, but also its citizens and businesses. We are all alarmed about the amount, from an association, the amount and the equity or inequity of the city operations fee increase. And I have to say that we do, as an association, oppose the employee paid payroll tax as it is currently written. Both would make it increasingly unaffordable to live and work in Salem. A couple points I'd like to bring up. The city's website states the following: have all possible cuts been made? And it says yes. Will this solve our budget crisis? And it says further incremental increases in funding will be necessary to address the gap. The recommended budget continues current service levels with expansions funded by an increase in the city operations fee and an employee paid payroll tax. Knowing the city is facing a $19.4 million deficit and reportedly requiring revenue increases of $27.9 million annually for community safety, was it fiscally responsible to increase library hours on May 1st? Is requiring your constituents to pay these additional fees and taxes, which frankly could be detrimental to some of their households and businesses, good governance? Especially if the city is not willing to focus on essential core services, which I have to say as an association we absolutely support, but not cut or reduce non-essential services in any manner. Voter trust is earned, and we do urge you to please make responsible and yes, difficult choices before approving the budget, by also considering perhaps not continuing all the current services and putting all the burden on the citizens. Thank you for your careful consideration of our comments, and we really appreciate your service to Salem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Erdman.
Mayor Hoy, members of the council, Mike Erdman with the Home Builders Association of Marion and Polk Counties, 2075 Madrona Avenue Southeast in Salem. And I am here neither speaking for or against the budget, but rather just providing some more general commentary. And I know the focus today is not on the prospective payroll tax, and I'll save my comments on that for your public hearing in a few weeks. But it's essential to recognize that the underpinnings of this budget are really what necessitate the payroll tax and the operations fee increase. And so therefore, our organization is rightfully concerned, of course, with the budget expenditures that are driving the call for the tax and the fee increases. We had the opportunity recently to meet with your city manager, your deputy city manager, and your chief finance officer to review the budget. And frankly, their argument for the budget, especially in light of the employee count per 1,000 residents, is persuasive. It very much is. However, our apprehension really lies with the rapidly escalating cost of city governance, irrespective of employee count, which it seems to eclipse both the rate of inflation and population growth. And so to bring that concern into perspective, let's revisit the 2011 budget 12 years ago. Frankly, it's the oldest one that was readily available. Back then, the city's general fund expenditures were just shy of $101 million. You fast forward to the present day, 12 years later, and even after adjusting for inflation and population growth, a parallel budget for the coming fiscal year would be $165 million. And that, of course, is $20 million less than what you have before you today. And that's an amount equal to your projected budget deficit. And I might point out that when you look at the property tax income side, when I run those same numbers, that property tax income adjusted over that same amount of time, you're only $1 million short of what you would expect to keep pace with inflation and population growth. Point out that budgets that persistently and perceptually outstrip inflation and population growth rates are not viable for the long-term health of the community. And we harbor grave concerns that the proposed payroll tax and operations fee increases, frankly, are just going to be the first of many future increases. We fear this is going to lead the city down a path of successive tax and fee hikes to combat the ever-escalating budget deficits. So what we would urge of you is, frankly, a more sustainable fiscal path, urge that you spend more time working towards a comprehensive review of the city's programs and services. Let's differentiate the essential from the non-essential services, looking towards reductions, eliminations, and greater efficiencies. It's not to undervalue the services the city provides in any way, but instead to prioritize those that are most necessary for the citizens' well-beings in light of the fiscal constraints the city's operating under. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman. Tom Hoffert.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy and councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to address council tonight. My name is Tom Hoffert. I reside in Ward 1 and also serve as CEO of the Salem Chamber, which is residing in Ward 1. First, thank you to the city staff and the Citizen Budget Committee for their efforts to engage the Salem Chamber and the broader business community. It is clear the city has a budget challenge, and it's not unique to Salem, based on structural issues at the state level, which must be addressed statewide. We recognize the presentations made to our organization serves as recognition that the Salem Chamber and the small business community here are viewed as thoughtful individuals who will bring solution-oriented approach to our work. Despite earnest efforts, our organization has concerns regarding the process that have made it challenging to engage in intellectually honest conversations around the budget, the city budget going forward. As mentioned by my colleague Mike Erdman, the cost of good government, as presented in this budget and next year's budget considerations, has outpaced both population and inflation growth. The business community, and likely the community as a whole, has not been presented with clarity on the implementation procedure for the to-be-discussed proposed payroll tax, and we will obviously submit commentary on that. Yet this year's budget is built on a substructure which necessitates additional revenues the next fiscal year. Our ability to be productively engaged has been hampered by a changing percentage rate, potential carve-outs for living wage earners, and potential collection logistics which may require employers to quantify daily work patterns, where their employees are working, other cities and municipalities they may be entering. It's a daunting vision for local employers who are already struggling to operate post-pandemic in a supply chain challenged world with high inflation. As the capital city, Salem bears the burden of a high percentage of state-owned properties that do not generate tax revenue, a large employment base in this that does not live in this community, but rather commutes here, and our obligations to serve state agencies such as prisons, corrections, and hospitals are based here. This organization is prepared to stand behind you in front of the Oregon State Legislature and tell a compelling story of why our capital city is not being adequately funded in lieu of taxes. We have strong local legislative body, they're accessible, and they are needed. In light of time, I'll forward through a few things regarding overtime and its cost. The cost of good government. The city has continued to venture deeper into social challenges. We are far outside of doing basic infrastructure and public safety. We're addressing the unhoused population, literacy programs, entertainment and events, food instability, family self-sufficiency, and many other areas in our community that our nonprofits tackle. We would like very key prioritizations of what this city can afford for its residents, and we'd like to be at the table and assist with those conversations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffert. I see that Jason Brandt signed up, but I think he left and made his comments earlier, so just confirming. All right. That concludes the public testimony on the budget. So now we will proceed to questions for staff. Do we have questions for staff? I know we've just been through a lengthy process with the budget committee that we all sat through several meetings, so I'm not sure that there are things left to be discovered, but I'm not seeing any hands online or here in the room. So last chance for questions. All right, we will close the public hearing. And Councilor Stapleton.
I move the City Council direct staff to return on June 26, 2022 with a resolution to adopt the Budget Committee recommended fiscal year 2024 City of Salem budget.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
Yes. I wanted to thank staff first and foremost. I feel like we have been working on this for 6 months, I think. Maybe more, as we set our priorities this last November and December, and then as we moved into starting to see the city manager create this budget and then work with the budget committee to bring it to this point here tonight. So I have asked so many questions and had so many meetings about this, and just wanted to thank staff for their diligence in getting back to me on all of those and helping answer all of the questions that I had. I fully support the budget as it is presented here tonight, and hope that my colleagues join me.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I just wanted to make a couple comments to say that I ran for this seat as ward councilor to help our city. I was elected to serve and the Ward 2 and the City of Salem citizens. I know I would face tough decisions, and I'm willing to do so. The budget certainly has been one of those tough decisions. I appreciate all the written and public testimony about the 2024 budget. I have read and listened and heard most, if not all. Thank you again for being here tonight and calling or emailing in your testimony. Here are the reasons why I will be voting in favor of the budget. The long-term health of the general fund, keeping the city's bond ratings high so we can be successful in our bond infrastructure projects, to support the city's success in our continued growth in business and population. The budget will positively impact every citizen every day. I will be voting in favor of the budget and the benefits it will bring to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hoy.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to first of all thank everybody who came to testify and to speak toward these topics. It's difficult for me I haven't been in this budget for very long. And the more time I spend in this position, the more I realize the ship has been sailing for a very long time. And I'm just here dealing with the consequences of those past years. I also feel that if we don't make difficult decisions and cut the, for lack of a better word, the unnecessary spending or the luxuries or whatever you want to call it, if we don't do the hard work first and carve those things out, then I believe we're doing a disservice to our community. So I will be voting no because I want to see more. I want to see more of the hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And I hear your comments, and I have heard those others who have said that we need to be cutting before we look to pass this budget. And I would just be curious to know, what are those services that we should cut that we haven't already cut? I don't know what those services are. I look around at the city budget and the city staff, and I see them doing amazing things with less every year in terms of the capacity of our budget to deliver on the services for a city our size. I don't know what those things are. I don't know where we would make those cuts that we haven't already made. I mean, I've heard the library tossed around. That's an essential service in my mind. The library is not a luxury in my mind. It's essential. If you go to our library and see the kids who are there and who need that library, it's essential. It's not a luxury. So I don't know where those cuts are, and I feel like we have done that hard work. We have made those cuts. I agree with my colleague from Ward 6 in that we are dealing with the result of past decisions. That is for certain. We're still dealing with our broken property tax system that has saddled us with the inability to maintain the pace with our revenue for decades now. And we've cut and we've cut and we've cut. And I think that this is a very responsible and appropriate budget given the circumstances, and I look forward to supporting it. Councilor Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I'll be supporting this motion because of the process we went through with the budget committee. You know, there's a process there. We went through it. But one thing I did want to at least address, one of the comments you guys had back and forth was, as a chair of the finance committee, there were several times I asked for potential cuts. What could we offer to voters or citizens to show, in addition to all the lean work we had to do up to this point, which every business has, every family is doing. So, I mean, for the city to do is something we can all expect because we're all doing it in our own lives and our small businesses. And I did ask several times for some proposals because there is no way a handful of volunteers could actually understand what's in this budget and what's spent on every dollar. It's very difficult, you know, for anybody to really be able to dig deep and know and understand the day-to-day, hour-by-hour work, you know. So we trust the staff, you know. But I just at least wanted to share there were some questions that were asked, but never answers given. So.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Stapleton, did you want to address that? I know that I had questions about that after the last time you made those comments, Councilor Gonzalez, and I think that Councilor Stapleton did as well, and maybe have done a little bit of background work on that.
Yeah, and I'll pass this off to staff in just a moment, but when my fellow counselor from Ward 5, Councilor Gonzalez, pointedly made a point of bringing that up at our budget committee, I wanted to understand that further. And so I did reach out to staff and ask them, you know, what were these cuts that Councilor Gonzalez was asking for, and what was that behind the scenes conversation that happened, and please help me, enlighten me. And staff shared with me what those were and how they felt that they addressed those. And so I know that either city manager or Josh, if either of you guys could share what those were about, that would be great. I think for all of us to understand, because I think we all really respect Councilor Gonzalez, and it's good for us to all be on the same page.
Again, Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. Really appreciate the conversation. I apologize that it wasn't a clear answer. So after those conversations with the Finance Committee, we engaged Moss Adams to look at reduction scenarios. That work was complete. You might remember a few different tools were sent out via email to look at different reduction scenarios. There were multiple conversations with staff. I mean, it's fairly in-depth looking at those tools. That's one of the tools where we were looking at reductions where it became very clear very quickly that to get to that large of a reduction scenario, you can't just look at non-public safety, non-community safety services. That was one of the analyses that drove that conclusion. I don't know, City Manager Shaley, do you want to add anything else?
Sure, thank you. As Josh indicates, we did have our associates from Moss Adams do an in-depth analysis of our staffing and, quickly realized that in nearly every position across the board, from a general services perspective, from a sport perspective, we are understaffed. So in thinking about, how do we move forward with this budget, I saw two problems. One was a revenue problem, and the other is a staffing problem. And the budget that we put forward addresses both of those problems. And again, that was based on feedback and input from council throughout this process about the direction that we wanted to go, and the priorities of council weren't to cut services. They were to maintain or enhance services where possible. We've put forward a budget that does that. We put forward a budget that sets the stage for moving forward with some levels of service, particularly around public safety. So as we were thinking about making cuts, frankly, that just doesn't add up given where we are from a staffing perspective. If we were strong in any areas, I would say yes, let's do that. If we hadn't had these conversations over the last 15 years, I would say yes, there's fat in the budget, there's excess here that can be trimmed. But as a newcomer, that was what I was looking for. Where is it? And the reality is we've been in these circumstances for so long that those questions have been asked 10 years ago. And as Chief Niblock and Chief Womack both indicated to the Budget Committee several weeks ago, we have been making these cuts year in and year out. Just today, we received an email from a citizen regarding the library, pointing out all of the services that the library used to have. We used to have more hours available over at West Salem. We used to have a bookmobile, and we used to have other programs and services. Well, those programs and services have already been cut. Chief Womack used to have a downtown walking patrol, a bicycle patrol downtown. Again, you infrequently see them downtown because those officers have been subsumed into our emergency 911 response, and same with Chief Niblock and his response. So we have made those cuts over time. We've seen them, as the steel Chief Womack's. We've seen 1,000 cuts, and our organization has suffered from those 1,000 cuts, and the community as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I wanted to open it up, I guess, to Councilor Gonzalez, if there was specific things that that you had asked that you didn't feel were answered. I would love to hear that from you. I know that there might have been some specifics that maybe didn't quite get answered for you. So I just wanted to open that up here because I do care a lot about and have a lot of respect for your thoughts on this process.
Councilor Stapleton, appreciate your words, and same. And the initially, the conversation was we can't cut our way out of this, and I agree. There's no way. Things have been pushed off for years. The problems are getting harder. Our police response, what the police and fire have had to deal with the last X amount of years, it's grown exponentially. So we're in a really tricky position. And I think it was just the community didn't hear what potential cuts. And you're right, there maybe are some things that are essential. We consider essential, but maybe not our citizens. Maybe not, I have to cut things. It's on my mind every day. What do I cut that I used to think was essential? So I'm just worried going forward, what our process is to always ensure we're being as lean as possible. And I didn't see that process. So whatever it is, and maybe it's just pain, what hurts and what do we cut? But I didn't see a process of continual. What's the process to continue to look for ways to be more efficient, so we can always share that with the public when it comes time to do this. It'll just make it a little bit easier, and they'll understand because we all do the same in our house. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor. Further discussion? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, colleagues. I think that it's been said by people before me tonight, and more eloquently, we're at a point where we have a difficult decision to make. I don't expect to be popular at the end of all of this. I mean, it seems like this is pretty simple. The scale of the problem is big enough that we can either slash services or raise revenue. And when confronted with that choice, it's not a hard decision for me. I think that we have to raise revenue. I have not heard from my constituents a willingness to do the level of cuts it would require to make a dent in the somewhere between $19 and $27 million deficit per year that we have. What I've heard for the last 3 or 4 years in a row is the #1 issue facing our community is homelessness. So this begins us on a process of keeping things at the same level and making strategic investments and growing in the most critical areas while maintaining the services that we currently have. So unabashedly, I support this budget. I'm happy with the process. I'm learning more by the dialogue that's happened as recently as tonight, and I'm encouraged. So I thank everybody for being involved, and I will be voting yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gwynn.
I will not be able to support the budget, and mostly because, as Mr. Hoffert said, I think the city has gone away from essential services to an area that we shouldn't be funding. And so for that reason, I won't be able to support the budget.
Thank you, Councillor. And you don't have to answer this question, but it would be helpful for me to know what you mean by those areas that we shouldn't be funding.
And I don't know that shouldn't be funding, but we are budgeting for millions and millions of dollars for homeless services. And some of those, we don't know that they're going to work. We don't know that it's money well spent. I would love to see more result-oriented reports coming from, and I think that some of the services that are provided are awesome. But when somebody says we've provided services to 90 families, at what cost? And I've had other counselors tell me we can't put a price on helping people, and I have a heart too. And when I drive down the street, my daughter's in the car and she says, "Mom, we need to help that person," and so I get that, but we have to run the city like a business. It is a business. We have a huge budget, and we need to make sure that we're spending money appropriately and that the citizens who are paying taxes and a payroll tax or whatever it is, that they're getting, I guess I'm not articulating well. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking to the library and speaking to perceptions, I had a person reach out to me and say, "Why isn't the library collecting fees anymore?" And I couldn't answer that. I don't know why. And I do feel that a library is a wonderful thing. I grew up in a small town, so it wasn't a thing. We went to the library at school. But I do see it in the same bucket with police and fire, and I do see it as a very big number. And when given the opportunity to go through the website and to make my own run at it, I was able to balance things out. And I know that's not reasonable. It was an opportunity to try, but it did get me thinking about, how much do we need? Did we need to increase hours? And I put out the question and honestly am waiting for further response about how many people do use the library. What are the busiest hours of operations? What are the busiest days of operations? Is there anything that could be saved? And I don't mean to pick on the library. It's just the most obvious. If anyone out there has seen the budget book, it's about that thick. And this is my first time looking at a budget that big. And I would have to look further and deeper. And I know the city is an amazing bunch of people who are working really hard at these jobs every day. And I mean no disrespect. I just think it's easy to continue to pay in. It's easier to continue to pay in and to ask for more than it is to look for what we might be able to trim, not forever, but for a time, so we can stabilize and have a better picture moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I wanted to mention, the comments tonight have been really, really insightful. When I hear from the community, again, the priorities are public safety and addressing homelessness. And this budget does work towards that. In terms of the question with homelessness, are we making a difference? We've heard from DJ Vincent that, yes, we are making a difference. The folks that were able to transition into more supportive or into housing and jobs, et cetera, that's that many fewer people that are on the streets and on our sidewalks. And so we are making a difference. It may not be as fast as folks would like to see. So many folks just want to brush things away and have things disappear but not pay for it. But we are making a difference. I realize we can't cut our way out of the revenue issue that's been building for a really long time. But I'm not willing to cut public safety. Right now, we have enough cuts to public safety, to police and fire, and our park rangers, that people don't feel safe, or there isn't a response when they want it, or they call in with a complaint and there isn't someone to respond. Yet, folks are saying, address public safety. So it's a conundrum. And I feel it's important that we provide the services that people are requesting. When it comes to the libraries, I grew up spending quite a bit of time at the library. I always loved books. I feel the libraries are important because they provide computer access, programs for our teens, so our teens are not out on the streets. A lot of them are attending stuff at the library. Their kids' programs, training classes. Libraries are crucial, especially when I look at the state of Oregon right now and the literacy rate and the fact that we have kids, so many students in third grade that can't even read. As a previous educator, I just can't even fathom that. And libraries help us develop a love for books. And I mean, right now, where do students get books outside of the school? We need to have those libraries accessible. And I want to put in a plug. I would also love to see the West Salem branch open one night a week. It's great that we have it open for a few days, but I'd love to have it accessible in an evening when people that are working can get to it. Lastly, I did want to mention the park rangers. As a past member of the Parks Board, that's something we discussed often, was our need for more park rangers. I mean, 90 parks, what do we have, 2,800 acres? One park ranger is not enough to cover that. So I'm excited about that. So I wanted to say I am very supportive of the budget the way it is right now.
Thank you, Counselor, and I appreciate your comments about the West Salem branch. I would like to have a branch somewhere within 5 miles of my house. I don't have one. Nobody in East Salem or Northeast Salem has a library within 5 miles. And you have to cross Lancaster and I-5 to get to this library. Those are huge barriers for kids. So I appreciate your comments, and I'm looking forward to the day when we can actually have more branch libraries. So thank you. Counselor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to just kind of piggyback on what Councilor Varney was talking about. But first I wanted to say that I think that what we're not talking about is the cost of not funding something. You know, because there is a cost to cutting services. You know, that cost in literacy rates in our children. I think about what we were doing when I ran for office, which was a lot less than what we're doing now for homelessness. And in my ward, downtown was where everybody was at. And the streets were really, really hard to navigate. The businesses were really up in arms. I remember sitting over there and listening to the people come down here and complain to the city council that they weren't doing enough. You know, tonight we've had some differing opinions on this, on public comment, but they were pretty fired up that night when we were talking about homelessness and not addressing it. So there is a cost to our businesses. There is a cost to fire and police because it falls to them when we don't have managed campsites. There is a cost to the public, not only trying to navigate the areas that folks will then live, but also in our parks. There's a cost to the natural environment, but we also had to shut down parks, and people were not able to go into, and they're still not able to go in some of the parts of our parks, and people are angry about that. They want their parks back. And so I think that there is a cost that we're not talking about not funding these critical services. I also wanted to kind of piggyback on what Councilor Varney was saying about the surveys. Some of you guys have brought this up as well, and what we've heard from our community members. We've also heard from them when they have voted for bonds. They voted for the police bond. They know that this is very important. It's a critical service. They voted for the library bond, that whole renovation. And they voted for our last bond, this last November, our community bond, for 2 new fire stations. I'm pretty sure they don't want them to sit empty. I think they expect us to find a way to get employees in there. And they voted for brand new fire equipment. They voted for 2 branch libraries. Overwhelming support. 65% of our community voted for this. So they do not want us to shut down our library or shorten the days or limit any kind of services. They want us to actually expand. They want us to expand into East Salem and Southeast Salem. They want us to get into affordable housing. These are all the things that were on there. And some people view them as social services. I view them as critical. This is a community that I want to live in. And I think that the people who fill out the survey and say homelessness, addressing homelessness and safety is a top concern, and people who vote for bonds that are the future of our city, that's who I'm paying attention to right now. And that's who I'm hearing from in my community. I go to my neighborhood meetings, and they are all in support. And they see this as critical. They see this as courageous. They knew that this was coming because we've been talking about it for years. So I am really excited to vote for this budget and excited for the next few meetings where we get to look at the future funding for the city.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to tag on there to Councilor Stapleton's comment, I really do want a library or at least a book room out in Northeast Salem. I think it would be wonderful. I think maybe the wealth needs to be spread. The downtown library has a lot of money in it, and maybe we could, spread those monies out a little bit to cover more of the city in some way. I also think, and maybe this is random and too out of context, but when it comes to literacy, I think that major responsibility falls to our school system, and that they really need to step up the game. Because it's not because of our library that we have a poor graduation rate or education rate or reading rate. We all need to do better. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further comments? Mr. City Manager.
If I may, I just would like to make a commitment to council regarding performance auditing, and particularly around our homeless response. If we do move forward with this, I agree that we need to understand what we're getting for this investment. And we're fortunate enough to have a contract with Moss Adams. Their expertise is in performance auditing, and I will be asking them to prepare a performance audit for us for our homeless response system so that they can help us develop a system, one that has clear guidelines for contracting and key performance metrics for the services that we're delivering. So that's a commitment from management for how we would move this forward.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Further discussion, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, thank you to all my colleagues, including and especially those who are skeptical of our budget, because it's important to hear from every single perspective. I am so appreciative of the fact that this council continues to proceed with professionalism every step of the way, even and especially when we disagree. You don't know how much I appreciate that, given the prior line of work I used to be in. And you know, speaking of, I see a city budget as an investment in people. We don't make widgets. We are a service-based industry. And many of our employees do the work of 2 or more. And I understand that completely. Up until January of this year, I was a government employee. I worked for the state government for about 15 years. And as much as I enjoyed the work, I was ready for a new adventure. And that story is for another time. But not long afterwards, I asked my manager how things were going with the recruitment for my position. And he said it would take 2.5 people to really fully replace me because I had been there for 15 years. I mention that not to brag about myself, but because I know from our Deputy City Manager, Krishna Namburi, she's talked about this with us, that our staff, our most experienced staff, many of whom have decided to make a career in public service, do the work of 2 or more, and they bring that experience level with them. I'm also hearing a lot of challenges in recruitment and retention of employees, and that's true, I'm sure, for the private sector as well as the public sector. When I talk with our city employees, our rank and file who are not management level, they tell me in how it's very easy to be lured away by private sector versions of what they do, be it electricians' work or other work where they can make more money. So we have a real challenge in terms of completing a budget every year. And when I see the number of vacancies in city government, that does concern me. So I do not call this a perfect budget for a number of reasons. But I've carefully vetted it, as have all of my colleagues here, as have the members of the Citizens Budget Committee, for whom I very much appreciate their time and service, as they pore over the phone book size. Remember phone books? And remember? We pore over phone book size budget books every year. And we do it in a way where the public is invited to provide comment every step of the way. And I'm appreciative of all of that. So I'm looking forward to supporting our budget for this year. And as for the road ahead, I really urge my colleagues to remember that when we include the public in our decisions, we gain trust. And when we exclude the public, we lose trust. So with all that being said, I look forward to supporting the budget for this year.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? All right. Last chance. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Nay.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Nay.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, that is the last of our public hearings. We have no special orders of business, so we're on to information reports. We'll just go through those in order like we have been doing. Anything for item 6A? Councilor Phillips?
It might be coming up, but I just want to know, when would it come back to us?
I have a feeling that Councilor Stapleton is about to answer that question for you.
Thank you. I move the City Council hold a public hearing on July 10th to take public testimony on the proposed Safe Salem employee payroll tax.
Second.
Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. Yes, we've said a lot about this, and so there's not much to add again, but I do look forward to having this go to a public hearing so that we can hear from our constituents in a more formal way, and I hope that others will help vote this through.
Thank you, Councilor. And just to clarify, so your date was July 10th, so that'd be our first meeting in July?
That is correct.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Nordyke.
I just want to make clear that all here in the room, we understand all we're doing is voting to schedule a hearing. We're not making any votes tonight on a payroll tax. And I think that's important because the news is starting to report on this process, and we're already getting a lot of public testimony, a lot of concern. And I encourage folks to continue that process. I am wholeheartedly in support of a hearing for this matter on July 10, and I will be voting in support of Councilor Stapleton's motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Anything else on item 6A? All right, item 6B. Councilor Gwynn.
So I had questions, quite a few questions of Lisa on this today. But one thing she told me was this is our first, am I right? First subdivision that will have mostly middle housing. So I was excited about that. Is that right? Mostly? Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for highlighting that. Anything else on 6B? 6C. D. That's the one we had a revised report on, adding Councilor Nishioka to that committee. All right. Anything else on any of the information reports? Last chance. Okay. We'll move on to first readings then.
Ordinance Bill number 1023, an ordinance relating to the Multiple Unit Housing Tax Incentive Program, amending SRC 2.825.
Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I move that we conduct a first reading and advance to second reading ordinance bill number 1023 to amend SRC 2.825 related to multiple unit housing tax incentive program, amending the requirements of the program. That's quite the sentence.
Second.
Moved by Stapleton, seconded by Phillips. That's a theme for the night. Councilor, to your motion.
I have nothing to add.
Did you want to just mention that this is just a clerical kind of fix?
Yes, this is a simple administrative fix to correct an error that the, see here, the Salem revised code matched the approved program guidelines. So we're just making that slight change and adjustment.
No substantive changes, just correcting the record with the proper attachment. Any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. On to second readings, item 7.2A.
Ordinance Bill number 823, an ordinance relating to public murals, amending SRC Chapter 15 of Salem Revised Code. Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike. Aye. Counselor Barney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Councilor Nishioka. I know that one's near and dear to your heart. Okay, we are now back to item 8, public comment, and we now have 2 people signed up under number 8. We'll go first to Sarah Vick Parkinson. Reminder, you have 3 minutes. Step up to the microphone, introduce yourself, your address or your ward. The yellow light will flash when you have 1 minute to go. The red light will come on when your time is up.
And thank you all for being here. This is about credit where credit is due. I had an experience with the Salem Police Department that completely blew me away, and I'm still shaken in joy, actually. I've lost myself. On behalf of my ancestors to whom I owe so much and my children from which is borrowed, to honor my oath to defend against all foreign and domestic, in this case, the idea that scientifically indefensible pontifications trump truth. Disagreement and discussion are seen as gross disrespect, and legitimate issues are persons to banish. Marion Polk Food Share Garden Department sees disagreement and discussion as disrespect, equals they have a mandate to do so by any means, including the use of SPD to hassle the bearer, me, of inconvenient truths. I intend to take these liberty and justice for all issues up at the next Human Rights Intersectional Task Force meeting and the next Pride gathering. About the use of SPD to hassle the bearer of inconvenient scientific truths, such as bare soil leaches out nitrogen and H2O, mulch adds nitrogen and conserves water, the compost the garden department provides is nitrogen and phosphate deficient. This is about the garden department using SPD to harass me, and the resultant stupidest thing I've ever done, except perhaps volunteering for Vietnam against my mother's wishes. April 29th, I was in the garden, Highland Garden we're talking here, with another individual when an SPD cruiser and backup arrived. Garden department harassment I was expecting and was prepared. Salem Police Department I was not expecting. No matter how wrongly I thought, I had many encounters with SPD and OHP, Oregon State Police, over the years. As a peacekeeper for decades at demonstrations, I've worked the line to humanize the situation and to show appreciation for police peacekeeping efforts. As a person on point, worked in the 90s downtown gang and sexual predation scenes, but I never as a subject. It's different. It didn't dawn on me until I was writing this up. My actions could have got me shot and would have been most certainly justified. The second I saw them, instinctively I knew they were coming for me. I got angry. In my back pocket was not a gun, but a sloppily composed letter from the garden department that dictated my permitted existence, for which I was in compliance. Those two officers had no reason to suspect I wasn't pulling a gun, and they didn't flinch. They also didn't freak me out, and I guess I'm done. But credit for credit was due. I think they should be recognized, and I'm so sorry I forgot their names. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. And now we have Donald Davis.
Hello, I'm Donald Davis from Ward 8, and I just wanted to speak to the sit-lie ordinance that went through and the designation of travel corridors for camping individuals. And I just want to recommend that the bike and pedestrian path underneath the the highway bridge be designated as one of those corridors. I was bike commuting frequently this winter and frequently had to go around and up the very steep hill that is the bridge, because that area was completely blocked off by individuals who are camping there. And I know that I've seen other, bikers who would join me for a couple cold and wet mornings and then stop showing up because of those individuals camping there. And so I would just recommend that location be recognized as a non-camping area. And I also want to recommend that the library in West Salem, let's increase the hours there, because it is also the closest bathroom to the transit stop that's over there as well. And whenever dealing with multiple children, it's much easier to scoot them into the library bathroom than it is to transfer them up to Roth's and then get the code for the day and go upstairs. And so I just want the city council to recognize that, there are multiple benefits to having, bathrooms and other locations, and that people would use these services if they were more available. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. I would just like to clarify the location you were referring to. Is that on the Marion Street Bridge?
Yes, it's under the Marion Street Bridge. It's the no man's land between Oregon, Department of Transportation and City of Salem. Nobody wants to take responsibility for that area because it's state highway and also a path of, city is what the ODOT says. So it's a very, very difficult location.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. All right. Seeing no further items on our agenda. Oh, Mr. Sturba, you already had your shot. Did you want to speak on number 8? Yes. You didn't sign up. Go ahead. Do it. Hit that microphone button for me. Introduce yourself. Hit that microphone button, please. Nope. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Hoy and councilors and city staff. I've got to tell you, I love airports. I love streetlights. And for one thing, I like Dark Sky International. I'll tell you why. What's really interesting, the streetlights or lights on a parking lot, and you're driving down the street and you go, that light is not focused on the parking lot. It's blinding me. I don't like that. Well, how about the birds? One thing, I take a look every night, I look at the TV stations and they show downtown Portland and they see all the lights, and I thought, how are the birds going to migrate with all that lighting? Well, Dark Sky International addresses that. And the weatherman also says, hey, look at the radar. It's all the birds flying to the north, going home, or to the south, going home. And I thought, wow, this is something we as a community could save a lot of money. We did by going to very efficient lighting. Also, we need to go to the public and say, what can we do? Well, I'll tell you one thing. The neighbor has a really bright light 3 houses away, shines over in my yard. And I went, okay, why don't you put a cover over that so that you're not wasting electricity, but you're lighting my yard when you don't need to. So consequently, I thought, well, this is a great idea. I started checking around. The city of Hillsborough has the lighting system that you can't take the light in your yard and shine it into their yard. There's ambient light that maybe bounces off, but you can't shut the light directly on the neighbors. So the city of Hillsborough has a really nice setup. I've pulled it off their website, and it was given to me, and it mimics the Dark Sky International. So you can't have bright lights intercepting people driving on the street, and the observatory over east of Bend. That community over there has all down lighting. So there's two communities, Hillsborough and over there, I think that's the University of Oregon that operates that university. But we got to do more, and we already started on track with the street lights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturba. We're adjourned. Not bad. 8:25.